The press is reporting that Kevin McCarthy and President Biden have reached a deal to raise the debt ceiling, by which they mean that Kevin McCarthy has come up with conditions under which he thinks he can convince his caucus to do its job. However, McCarthy still might not have the votes. Keep in mind that the only purpose of this charade is so that a contingent of performative House Republicans can be seen as rolling back the president's agenda. They pretended that this performance was about fiscal responsibility to obfuscate the cynical nature of a purely political strategy that was irresponsibly predicated on a willingness to send the country into a recession. The problem, however, is that McCarthy's agreement creates only minor setbacks to the president's agenda relative to that contingent of Republicans' rhetoric, meaning that he might not get their votes and therefore will need Democratic votes for it to pass, which might be hard and reasonably so. For starters, it rolls back funding to modernize the IRS. Should be easy for the party of law and order to get on board with enforcing the law. However, they've spent the last couple of years lying about what that funding is for, so now it's hard for them to go back to their constituents and tell them not to worry about passing common sense law enforcement funding. Law enforcement funding that, coincidentally, makes it harder for us to lower our debt if eliminated. It also arbitrarily kicks some people off of food assistance programs with no discernible benefit, and people not being able to afford food is generally bad for the economy. It caps non-defense spending and increases defense spending, even though defense is what the US overspends most on, and the non-defense spending cut contributes to economic growth. And it prevents the government from raising much-needed revenue. In other words, he'll be asking Democrats to vote for legislation called the Fiscal Responsibility Act that is fiscally irresponsible and just not very good government, something that plays much better with his voters than theirs. Plenty of Republicans won't want to vote for this either because they've set the expectation that they'll send the country into default unless Biden willingly repeals his own policy achievements and agenda. This legislation, having not done that, will make them look weak, which was a great reason for them not to have set that expectation to begin with. Maybe Democrats will offer their votes to simply avoid default. Maybe McCarthy can strong-arm the Republican votes he needs. But remember the grand bargain fiasco when Republicans pulled this same exact nonsense in 2011. House Speaker John Boehner and President Barack Obama thought they had a deal and started communicating as much just to have Tea Party Republicans tank it. Ultimately, though, McCarthy should have refused to go along with the extremists on this stupid idea to begin with. He owns this. Unfortunately, his ego drives him to pursue the speakership above all else, and we all suffer this spectacle of incompetence as a result.